know something I really hate? I hate that around December, without fail, online, on social media, in person, you always get that person or persons who have to tell that age-old chestnut, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Die Hard! And it's not that I have any objection to you watching this movie during the holidays. I have no objection to anybody who has a specific holiday tradition, or that your family has a certain film or TV show that they like to watch around the holidays. My family does. So if Die Hard's part of that, I don't care. That's fine and dandy with me. What I hate are the people who talk about it. I hate the people who tell the joke. For the same reason I hate the people that point out that, oh, Shaggy and Scooby were stoners, or Ernie and Bert were gay. It's not the observation I have a problem with. It's the fact that when these people make said observation, they do so with this just oh so pleased with themselves, shit-eating grin, like they are the first person in history to ever make this observation. They believe themselves to be the bastard offspring of Oscar Wilde and Noel Coward. It's like, I'm a wrestling fan, and when you tell people that, guaranteed, never fail, at least one person in the room will say to you, it's fake, And they do so with this look on their face, like they believe themselves to be Morpheus and you are Keanu Reeves, and they have just shattered your entire sense of reality. Like this concept never even entered your mind, you feeble-brained peon. So yeah, when people do the whole Die Hard's my favorite Christmas movie thing, it irks me. But you know what especially irks me is that even on that level, Die Hard is not the best Christmas movie example that you could use for that. 1990s Die Hard 2 is. Die Hard 2 is the better Christmas movie. Yes, it also takes place at Christmas, but things that are holiday related actually play a bigger part in this one. The concept of bad weather, bad snowing weather, holiday travel and being backed up. The bad guys hide their radio jammers in Christmas presents. There's even a fucking church in it. So everybody who does the whole Die Hard is my favorite Christmas movie, shut up. Die Hard 2 is the better Christmas movie. Before I move on, I want to show this off. You kids today with your streaming don't appreciate this. Look at this. Look at the double clamshell this thing comes in. That's when you knew, for DVD buyers like me back in the day, this is when you knew you were getting the good shit. Because they had to give you a thick ass box. And this small box shit, you need 2 discs for this. Okay. I'm bending the rules here with this one, because Die Hard 2, Die Harder, you gotta say the whole thing, is not really a forgotten gem. People remember Die Hard 2. If for no other reason, they remember it for the subtitle. In the same way that most people don't remember Breakin' 2, they don't remember Breakin' 1. But they all remember Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. So the Die Harder joke has been around for a while. Forrest Gump 2, Gump Harder. There's other examples. So this film is not forgotten. What I do believe is that this movie is underrated and underappreciated. Now, despite the little comedy rant I went on a second ago, let's also make this clear. I am not trying to make the argument that Die Hard 2 is a better movie than Die Hard 1. It is not. Truth be told, no action film is better than Die Hard. Die Hard is the best action movie ever. Period. Full stop, no arguments. But Die Hard 2, so it had a hard act to follow. And I think, given that you had a genre redefining masterpiece you were trying to do a sequel to, I think it more than met the challenge. It did as well as it could, being the sequel to Die Hard. You know what this movie is? This movie is the Eli Manning of action sequels. It hits a lot of the right notes. It does a lot of things great. It does a lot of things better. But it is never going to get the respect it deserves because it just can't measure up to Big Brother, you know? So let's talk about some of these so-called aspects. So for those who don't know, Bruce Willis once again back as John McClane. I should also say that in tone, in aesthetic, in feel, and I think because this one came so close after the original, this one feels more like a sequel to the original. I know a lot of people tend to prefer Die Hard with a Vengeance, but it just didn't feel like a Die Hard movie to me. It just didn't. Whereas Die Hard 2 looks like that same gritty 80s action movie aesthetic. Probably because it's from 1990. So for the purposes of this review, and for a lot of these forgotten gems, we just need to consider the early 90s, the 80s. All right? So just go with me on that. So it's shorthand. So aesthetically, it still looks and feels like the same world that John McClane inhabits. So in this sequel, John McClane is in Washington, D.C., I assume because they're spending Christmas with his in-laws. I think that's why they're there. And he's at the airport waiting for Bonnie Bedelia's plane to land so they can go and have Christmas with the family. However, a couple things are going on. One, a really bad weather system is pulling in, so a lot of other airports are shutting down and sending their planes to Dulles International Airport. And also coming in that day is a deposed South American drug dealer whom has a bunch of followers, ex-military guys, who have decided they're going to, through action movie logic, they're going to magically take over the electronics at the airport, make it impossible for all the planes to land, so that they can basically break this deposed general out. So you've got all the planes stuck up in the air. They can't divert. They don't have fuel to make it to another airport. They have no choice but to keep circling. They're running low on gas. Time is running out. And once again, the villains have everything planned to the letter except the wild card that is John McClane. So, right away you see that it's doing the typical sequel thing. It is taking the familiar setup, the setup that worked, a guy, in the wrong place at the wrong time, and kind of expanding out. They give him a bigger location, but it's still a confined location. I think that's one of the things I wasn't as big a fan about, with A Vengeance, is that, yeah, the airport gives him more room to navigate, but it's still a confined space. Everything is still happening in one location as opposed to a whole city. This time he's got more support. He's not alone. He's not the lone guy against a whole army, but you have the problem that there are more terrorists than there were before. You have the problem that you're not sure whom in his circle that he can trust, and a lot of them don't like him, so it feels like he's constantly running off and doing shit on his own anyway. So again, taking all the elements and expanding it outward. I gotta hand it to them. They came up with an interesting plan for the villains to have. albeit, and I think this is one of the things that most people kind of start pointing at the series, and this is where it starts kind of jumping the shark. Unlike Hans Gruber's plan in the original, this plan is way more far-fetched, and even then, way more difficult to pull off. But I think in terms of movie logic, if you just kind of sit back and go, okay, it's movie logic, it works. It works good enough. The action scenes are bigger, again, because you're in a bigger location and a bit more spread out. You've got fights in the baggage area. You've got fights in the terminal. You've got a snowmobile chase. You've got fights on the climactic battle on the wing of a moving plane. So they steadily, very steadily kind of increase the craziness of McClane's situation. So much so that by the time you get to the end and kind of the more jump the shark moments, you're not quite sure where the shift really happened. You're like, okay, we were going along, things seem kind of realistic, but how are we ending up having a battle on the wing of a plane? It's just, but it's still, it doesn't quite jump the unbelievability shark quite the way that like Live Free or Die Hard does, which is still, I still contend Live Free and Die Hard is still a fun, stupid action movie. It's not a great Die Hard movie, but it's a good action movie. It's a fun little diversion. However, I digress. That's another video altogether. I also think it's interesting that they changed up his villain a bit. Now, again, much like the original, nobody is going to top Alan Rickman and Hans Gruber. Nobody can do that. All right, Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber is perfect. There is nothing, until they can clone Alan Rickman. So I think it was smart that they didn't try. They gave him a much different adversary in William Sadler's Colonel Stewart. And again, he's not as charismatic in his plan. He's much more straightforward than Alan Rickman, than Hans Gruber, I should say. He's also a more on the ground bad guy. He's a final boss. Again, one of the things that made Die Hard, the original, so iconic is that it took a lot of the action movie cliches and turned them on their heads. The final showdown with Hans is not a bare-fisted brawl, a fight. It's a duel of wits. Hans always thinking he's the smartest, while McClane's kind of got the gun taped to his back with a little wink and a nod kind of intelligence. So it's a different kind of final battle. This one gives us a little bit more of a traditional final battle in that William Sadler is on the plane, on the wing of the plane, beating the shit out of him. I also think it's neat that they gave him, whereas McClane is a kind of a two-fisted, again, the obvious metaphor that they use over and over is that he's a cowboy. He's old school. But here you give the old school cop a guy with really smooth martial arts skills to fight. I think it's a neat contrast, and it works really well for it. This is a character in Colonel Stewart that we first meet while he's doing naked karate in his hotel room, which is an interesting thing I noticed. And this is just something that kind of popped into my head. Isn't it bizarre what a difference 7 years will make in pop culture and the perception of certain things? I remember, I still remember, I can still remember because it's still going on. In 1997, a mere 7 years after this movie, Batman and Robin comes out. And And what are people bitching about? Nipples on the batsuit. Ew, cod pieces. Ew. People just having this fucking fit. A fit that they are still having 23 years later, I might add. Over this perceived, I'm mispronouncing the word, objectification of the male body. Keep in mind, as Movie Bob points out, these are also people who likely had no problem with Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. But because this is now turning the gaze on the male body, now it's perceived as that oh so terrible thing, gay. My apologies. I'm just saying the way it was, folks. And that just makes it terrible. So, nipples on the batsuit and codpiece on the batsuit is this horrible crime against nature. But back in the 80s, they had nothing but glistening man ass all over the place. And nobody was going, oh my God, oh, they weren't freaking out. They're like, it's fucking ripped. It's such a weird spacing. Maybe it's because of the two extreme. I don't think it's that extreme of an example. I think Batman and Robin is an extreme example, but I think these 80s movies were extreme examples because they were extreme. But the closer we get is people, giggling over Top Gun being homoerotic, supposedly. But, no one had a problem with Arnold Schwarzenegger strutting his ass all over the place. Or this guy doing naked karate. They're like, fucking badass, But put nipples on that batsuit and, oh! Anywho, slight diversion. I think the different location really helped out a lot. I already mentioned that. It was but it also offered more interesting characters for him to interact with. Again, going the opposite way from the original, one of the character he had the connection with was Al Powell. Yay! Everybody loves Reginald Val Johnson because he's awesome. So here, they immediately give him a cop sidekick who fucking hates him. Played by Dennis Franz. And it's so, again, they're shifting up the dynamic. He doesn't have kind of that Al support beam, even though he calls Al for a cameo, but he's not there to actually help him through. I would have liked that. That's a movie I really wish they would have made. I wish they would have done a Die Hard movie where John and Al were in it, and like equally, and like both of them were running through, and Al's like shooting bad guys thinking they're Urkel, that kind of thing. Anywho, is the movie perfect? And I think we've established it's not. It's not as believable as the first. Because the stunts need to get bigger and badder and all of that. There's a lot of green screening in it, very obvious green screening, which takes away again from the grounded feel that the original had. The original was, I think the original was almost all practical effects. I don't think there was a green screen or anything in it. So it starts to veer that way. And again, I can suspend disbelief up until one point in this. So Bruce Willis and William Sadler are having the fight on the wing of the plane, the climactic fight. William Sadler's kicking his ass, and Bruce Willis is hanging off the side of the plane, and he yanks the gas release valve on the airplane wing, and the gas starts shooting out, so we can have the climactic thing of throwing the lighter, it lights up the plane, blows it up, big finish. But William Sadler is standing right there looking at him. There is no fucking way you missed the gas spewing out. No fucking way. And again, the movie steadily gets more and more unbelievable, but I can go along with it. When it hits that point, I'm just like, you can see the fucking gas! You can totally see it! But that's the thing, it's no more unbelievable than a lot of other action movies of its day. Again, if it was not the little brother of the greatest action movie of all time, I think most people would have just, you'd write that stuff off and just go, well, that's just the way these movies are. But because it has that Die Hard association, it's immediately kind of looked at a little bit differently. But all in all, I still think this is a good movie and a good action movie and a better than average sequel. I think in the topsy-turvy world of sequels to things that were never meant to have sequels, I think this is about as good as you could hope for. And judging by the, 3 other sequels they've done since, this is definitely the best you could hope for. Again, I know a lot of people really like Die Hard with a Vengeance. I don't mind it, but I don't really like it that much. I think Live Free or Die Hard is a fun, stupid movie. It's not something I take seriously. I don't even remember the name of the last one they did. It was so fucking bad. So yeah, I think you're trying to do a sequel to something. I think this is about as good as you're gonna get, and I think it deserves a little bit more praise than it gets. And again, I think it's by far the better Christmas movie. It revolves more around Christmas than the original did, where it just kind of happened to be Christmas so we could do things like, now I have a machine gun, ho, 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 kind of thing. So yeah, I watched this one at Christmas, usually after I watch Die Hard. So stuck inside, give Die Hard 2 another shot. I don't think you'll regret it. All right, folks. So, it stretches on before us, my friends. We're in this for the long haul, and Drive Home Reviews will be there for you. So, as always, keep calm and carry on, and drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.